Welcome back, everybody, to the Baseball 360 show. I am your host, Mike Handel, and boy, is it great to be back. First show of the 2024 season. Man, what a long off season it was. We got a lot to talk about today. But first, I got to introduce my co-host.
What's up, Mike? It's been a long time coming. We had a little time off in between almost a year. Wanted to take a second crack at the show again and try to grow the channel. We kind of just picked it right back up from where we left off. So we'll probably throw in some updates as far as graphics go, and maybe we change up a little bit of the format. But a lot of this stuff is pretty much going to stay the same. We're just going to try to keep this thing on chugging along.
Well said, Fazio. We're glad to be back for the 2024 season, year 2 of this network. Okay, as we head to first base for the first time this season, some things never seem to change. The Dodgers are great, as per usual. The Pittsburgh Pirates off to a hot start. Is it sustainable? We'll talk about that. Detroit Tigers back to their winning ways. This is not the days of Jim Leland and Justin Verlander. Yes, he's still playing. We have the Baltimore Orioles, who now have an ace pitcher that they've always needed. Corbin Burns, he looks like he's fitting in already. My fantasy team is paying dividends. You got the defending champions, Texas Rangers, off to an 8-7 start. Not off to the start they would like to be, but I could see that team getting going once they get some of their pitchers back. That is Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer, Nathan Eovaldi. The list goes on and on.
Last year, I know we kind of ended our season a little early, but, as we were kind of getting into the mold of getting these shows out, we did allude to the Rangers potentially being a playoff team. I believe it was right after opening day weekend. And, they were kind of in first place for a long time during last season. And then I believe it was like the last day or so, they fell out of first place, got into that wild card spot. But that didn't really faze them because obviously they won the World Series. And credit to their offense that popped off that we had kind of talked about initially when we did that episode a while back. Now they're at 8-7 as we're recording today. I still believe they're going to be a contender in this division. You still have the Astros, who got off to a cold start, very similar to what they did last season. They're going to bounce back. But I did want to talk about the Detroit Tigers, as you alluded to, Mike. And I want to just throw it out there and say I believe that this is the team that will surprise baseball fans this season. Now, last year you had the Rangers. I think the Tigers are going to be that team this year. Now, their rotation, I believe, has taken a huge step up. Starting with their ace, Tariq Skubal. I think he is going to be a dynamic ace, not only on that team, not only in that division, but in Major League Baseball in general. I do believe he'll be a top 3 AL pitcher when the Cy Young Awards come out. I think he'll be there to contend for the award. I don't think he'll win. Corbin Burns looks really great. I think he's going to be my pick for Cy Young this year. But Mike, I want to get your thoughts on the Tigers because this division, it's a little chippy, and I feel like a lot of those teams, they don't have like a well-rounded team to win 95 or 100 games. I know last year the Twins took it, but they only were up like 10 or so games from 500. So I'm curious about your thoughts about this division too.
So when it comes to the AL Central, this division, as we've seen for the last few years, very wide open. The winner is interchangeable year after year. The Tigers should strike now while the iron's hot. I thought the Tigers had a chance to compete a couple of seasons ago, but it was just way too premature in their development stage. But now seems to be the time that they're ready to compete. They're going to have their work cut out for them. You still have the Guardians, regardless of the Shane Bieber injury, and we'll talk about that a little later. The Guardians are here to stay. I know Jose Ramirez wasn't that enthused for the start of the baseball season, but that guy doesn't even have to be interested in playing, and he'll go out and hit 30 homers, 100 RBIs like it's nothing, compete for the AL MVP. And then you got not the Minnesota Twins, who they seem to have the injury bug. Carlos Correa just went down. Royce Lewis, who can't seem to stay healthy. I think they're the odd team out. And of course, the White Sox, who we don't even need to get into. The Kansas City Royals have entered the chat room. This isn't your 2015 Kansas City Royals. Wow, does that hurt to say. They get competitive starting pitching from guys like Michael Waka and Seth Lugo, not to mention the young Cole Reagans. They're going to keep this team in ball games. Bobby Witt is an absolute star, probably one of the best in baseball. This is a big leap for them to make, almost similar to the Orioles. They lost 106 games last season. So that is a humongous leap for them to take, but this is the division to do it in.
Yeah, they still got Salvador Perez on their team. Miraculously, I thought he'd be like 40 years old at this point. Looked on Instagram, saw that he was 33, and he's still probably one of the bigger team members of this offense. And like you said, Bobby Witt, probably a top 3 player in Major League Baseball. His average right now is above 330. We'll see if he can keep pace throughout the season, but I did notice in Yahoo he was like ranked top 3 overall in fantasy, and I think he deserves it at this point because he is just a truly a bona fide stud in Major League Baseball.
And I also believe the National League Central is going to be a battle in and of itself. The Pittsburgh Pirates, we know how it was last year. They got off to a hot start and then they eventually tanked. Cincinnati Reds, who we hardly even mentioned last year, was competing for a playoff spot up until the final day of the season. They're in the mix. Ellie De La Cruz, O'Neill Cruz, Spencer Steer, Christian Encarnacion Strand. He's off to a slow start. This division is wide open, not to mention the Cubs, who they're definitely going to continue to compete. Unfortunately, they lost Justin Steele, but I still think they're going to be in the mix because this division is wide open. The St. Louis Cardinals, who normally don't miss, and last year they missed.
Yeah, they did. I picked them for the World Series. That did not happen. Kyle Gibson probably being one of their top pitchers in the team. He's like a ground ball pitcher. His ERA is usually pretty high, but he does power through, get you at least 5 or 6 innings minimum when he's out there, regardless of how many runs he's given up. Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch them. I mean, I was a huge Jordan Walker fan last year. So far, hasn't really been panning out too much. He bats in the 7th spot. He's batting just above 170. He's got a little more room to improve there, but they're always a team to watch in the Central, and we'll see if they can make it. I think they're going to be one of those middling in the pack kind of teams that may miss out on a playoff spot come September. Finally, I do want to give a shout out to the team that I root for, the New York Yankees. I know last year I was a bit pessimistic about them. This year, however, acquiring Juan Soto, I mean, he might be the MVP of the league by the time this season's over. It's going to be a very, very interesting offseason for him if that's the case, because there's going to be a few teams out there that's going to pay at least, I think, $350 for him, maybe even more for like a 9-year deal. He's batting, 500? I'm just kidding. He's batting 327. He was batting 500 at the beginning of the season. As I just speak, he homered. His 3rd home run of the year. 6-0 Yankees right now against the Guardians in their doubleheader. It's just incredible what this guy's doing on the field. I think the Yankees could be in the World Series this year because of him.
Yeah, he just doesn't seem to fit in. What are you, crazy? This is absolutely the perfect player for the New York Yankees. And I understand he's going to be a free agent. And my Mets, there's a lot of rumors. If I'm Juan Soto, I stay put. I sign a deal with the New York Yankees tomorrow. What we've seen with contract deferrals, don't be surprised if you see that, if the Yankees need to find a way to fit them into the payroll, which I can't believe I'm talking about the Yankees struggling to fit somebody in a payroll.
The pessimistic in me is like, I don't know if they're going to beat the Astros in the playoffs, but they did sweep them to begin the season, and I got to tell you, that was a great feeling.
Yeah, that was a humongous win for the Yankees. Just like the Mets, they took a 2 out of 3 against the Braves in Atlanta. Talking about the Braves real quick, they should be able to run away with the National League East. However, losing Spencer Strider might create a slight opening for the Phillies to expose, but I think the Braves lineup is just too deep. And they still got some pitchers, Max Fried, Chris Sale, You still got Charlie Morton and Bryce Elder. The Braves will figure it out. They shouldn't have any problem winning that division. Once they get into the postseason, that's another story.
Yeah, I mean, I know they won in 2021 without Ronald Acuna Jr. In that postseason run, which is pretty miraculous looking back. But I think this offense has got to be one of the best in the majors. I mean, top to bottom, you look at this lineup. Jarrett Kelenic batting ninth, which is, as a Mets fan, that's got to kill you a little bit. I do think that, they may not win 105 games this season because of the Spencer Strider injury. They're going to hover around 95, 98 wins regardless. And like you said, the Phillies will be there. They'll take one of those wild card spots. I don't see anyone else in this division making the playoffs. I think the Mets are a year or two away from kind of reverting back to their postseason ways. It's been, an unfortunate run for them the last year or so, but a lot of prospects are going to come up for them. I think they'll turn the corner next season. But for now, I believe the Braves and Phillies are going to kind of own this division going forward a little bit.
We'll discuss the rest of the teams as the season progresses, but we're going to head from first over to second. Pitchers around the league, the elite pitchers even, have been getting bit by the injury bug at the start of this season. Every day at this point, it seems like a big-time pitcher is headed to the disabled list. Speaking of the Atlanta Braves, who we were just talking about a few moments ago, Spencer Strider, out for the season.
Shane Bieber, as you said earlier, also needing Tommy John. He's out for the year. Robbie Ray last year got Tommy John. He's missing the first half of this season as he makes his way back. And look, I mean, if it's not Tommy John, it's a shoulder inflammation like Justin Verlander. Now, I know he's over, was he 40 years old at this point, Mike?
I believe he's around 40, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, look, guy that age in baseball, he's definitely going to have wear and tear. I mean, it's not a huge surprise. Max Scherzer, similar situation. But you also had Framber Valdez, the Astros ace, also go down with an injury. Yuri Perez, also another pitcher that needs surgery. He's going to be out for the year. So to me, it's two things. And we were talking about this a little bit before on our prep talk. One, I think, is the preparation of these pitchers, the way that they exercise, the way that they get themselves in shape for the season. I think they just go at a rate that's just a little too much for them to handle. Going to my second point about why this is happening is I think the pace of play is also affecting these pitchers. Now, if you think about it, you have, 18 seconds in between pitches, 20 seconds in between pitches. A pitcher never had that prior to pace of play. They were able to kind of just, take a little bit more of their time, think about the pitch they want to throw, stay in their rhythm if they need to, and throw their pitch. Now with this pitch clock, pitcher goes through their windup, he throws, maybe he takes a little bit more time than he's used to. There's now 2 seconds left to get a pitch out. He has no choice but to deliver. That could throw off a pitcher, and he may not get injured at that certain point. But if you have that event happen at any time in the game and he's continuing to pitch, I mean, if you do that over and over, your arm is not pitching the same mechanic as you normally would throw. And just a little bit of that tweak could potentially lead to a Tommy John surgery. I got a feeling that that's got to be what's happening, that specific pace of play is leading to these injuries. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, Mike.
Going back to the pitch clock real quick. So it's been reduced from 20 seconds to 18 seconds with runners on base and 15 seconds, without runners on base. There's a reason why they had to put a pitch clock in, is because the pitchers would take that time in between pitches. One of the most important things for a successful pitcher to do is make sure they repeat that delivery meticulously over and over again. Even if that gets tweaked or rushed in the slightest, that's going to throw something off. Now, unfortunately, that's probably where my analysis ends, because I'm not a doctor, neither are you, as far as I know. So that's just where, that's as far as I'm going to go in terms of medical. You definitely can't blame it on them pitching too many innings, because guys don't go deep anymore. However, that means that, after 100 pitches, the guys are out of the game. Obviously, Tommy John surgery or any other any other one of these seem to be popular now pitching injuries have always really occurred, but this is an alarming rate.
I totally agree with especially the spin rate of which these balls are being thrown at a rate that we've never seen in our lives before. And when you throw that into the mix as well, you're going to be bound to just break something either in your elbow, you're going to tear something in your shoulder, your rotator cuff, what have you, just due to the fact that you're throwing so many times, not only in a game, but even in bullpen sessions too. And even when they're just throwing, just to get their arms warm, that also contributes to, those pitches being thrown as well, not just in a game. It's got to be something that Major League Baseball is going to have to take a look at in the future. And, I don't think there's going to be much that they could do maybe outside of change the ball a little bit. But if they do that, then obviously the hitters may be at a disadvantage. You tweak one thing, there's one solution, and then there's another problem or three that pop up. So it's tough. I don't know what they could do to really fix this. I don't think they're going to go back on their pace of play because they like the way the game is kind of progressing now as far as the time of which a game takes.
Yeah, no, the pace of play thing is definitely working. It's working to the point where I forgot that there even was a pitch clock going into this season. Do baseball players or just athletes in general, are they just in too good of shape? Do they work out too much now? I don't
That's what I
I
think. I certainly think so. I think, guys, in my view of it, guys are in their workout mode like a week after the World Series ends, which is nuts. Like, I think that's overkill. Even some guys are just, as soon as the season's over, they go right back to the gym. They're like, oh, I had a crappy year. Let me go to the gym now and like get my story, flipped for the next season. It's very competitive.
It's almost alarming now at this point when I see a player throw 100 over 100 miles an hour, 101, 102, 105. I'm like, this guy's going to get hurt. And
Jordan
do you
Hicks is a
ever
perfect example.
Michael Kopech, remember when he was showed those workout videos? He literally got a running head start, would grab a weighted ball and throw it at a wall or I'm sorry, at a net as hard as he can. That hurt my arm looking at that. Imagine doing that over and over again.
He must have got his workout plan from Trevor Bauer. I remember Trevor Bauer would have insane workouts when he was with the Diamondbacks in like 2012, 2013. He had like that really long thing he would just like do this with. He would throw a ball from like home plate all the way to center field. And like, that's cool. It's cool to watch, but I'm sure it didn't help him in the long run. Obviously, he's now in the Mexican League. He had some allegations of sexual assault, which, kind of ruined his MLB career. But outside of that, I mean, I don't understand the necessity to do those kind of things if you're a pitcher. It doesn't make sense to me. Another guy we also forgot to mention was Shohei Ohtani, but I think he's been busy this offseason gambling on baseball, and that's something we're gonna probably talk about next. Mike, if you want to head right into third.
Yeah, let's do it. Heading right into third base. Unless you've been living under a rock, you are well aware of Shohei Ohtani's interpreter's gambling problem. As far as we know, Major League Baseball hated the fact that this happened to him. Because if this happened to somebody like Jazz Chisholm, they would be all over his ass. And that's my problem here is they're pressing him, but then they're not pressing him. They're making it look like they're going after him for the sake of going after him. But listen, if Major League Baseball wants to sweep this one under the rug, fine, cool, whatever. Rob Manfred's next phone call would then have to be to Pete Rose congratulating him for making the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame because you can't have it both ways. And like I said, I've said it 100 times, I don't want to see Shohei Ohtani go, but you can't have it both ways.
Well, hopefully Rob Manfred won't have to make that phone call in the future because hopefully he's going to be gone, if not after this season, next season, because he has been doing a great job as commissioner, in my opinion. Now, to go back to Ohtani real quickly, now you got to remember, this offseason was kind of tumultuous for him. He goes from the Angels to the Dodgers, which was very controversial, the way that contract was worked out. He essentially is just deferring his money to the future. so that the Dodgers can afford to bring him on an already stacked team, which is unfair. I kept joking in the offseason being like, all this for the Dodgers to be eliminated in the NLDS. And it's just like after each week, a new signing or a new trade was happening. I'm like, all this for the Dodgers to lose. So like that was already to start the offseason with Ohtani. People being a little salty about them getting him, which I didn't mind after a certain point. I'm like, might as well just build a super team. Like let them go for it.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that. I'm kind of I'm not a Dodger hater. I'm not an Ohtani hater. I'm just a little bored with the Dodgers. This whole thing will blow over. That's what everybody wants, and it's gonna happen. And he seems to be fitting in with the Dodgers just fine.
I think you're right. I think the interpreter takes the fall. I think he's just going to be like, it was me. I was using his account. Whatever they got to do to like make sure Ohtani is playing and not going to get vilified for this thing, even though he probably did it, and went deep down and looking at like the situation. But Major League Baseball is going to do their absolute best to sweep it under the rug, which they already basically have. People are just like, oh yeah, that happened. Whatever happened to that result? Oh, he's playing? Okay, whatever. Like people are just not going to keep harping on him missing time because he is one of the most exciting baseball players on the planet. And it would be a shame for him to not play anymore. And I'm sure, again, they're going to do everything in their power to make sure that interpreter takes the fall whenever that ruling comes down, and that Ohtani stays safe on the Dodgers and plays, hopefully, for many years to come.
Well, we're rounding third and heading home. And I just want to say, for all those out there who like to gamble, just do it responsibly. Me, I don't always like to bet on baseball. I'd rather go to the casino out in Vegas. And speaking of Vegas, not just can you gamble out there, gamble your life away if you'd like, you can now catch a ball game not until 2028. That's right. The Athletics, after all this time, after all this chatter, are finally moving to Las Vegas. But first, they got to take a 2-year pit stop to Sacramento. They will no longer be called the Oakland A's, nor the Sacramento A's. Yes, the city of Sacramento is not even claiming them either. I feel bad for this poor team, Foz. What do you got to say?
I do. I just want to really quickly correct you. 2027, I believe, 2-year gap for the A's to go into Las Vegas. Now, it is possible that it gets moved to 2028. They're not really 100% sure when this stadium is going to be built in Las Vegas. I personally believe, and we kind of talked about this last year when it first was announced, that it was inevitable that this team was going to be in Las Vegas. I mean, you saw the Raiders go out there. Vegas is obviously now becoming a sports town. You got the Golden Knights out in Las Vegas playing hockey, playing very well. They're going to be heading to the playoffs again this season. And they're just looking to grab as many sports teams as they can. And unfortunately, with the A's situation now, the owners were terrible. They sent down
Esteri Ruiz.
Correct. They sent down Esteri Ruiz, who was batting like 400. They're like, you're too good. We can't have you be this good. And so when it said it's a real life major league movie happening, and it's, obviously like that's funny, but it's not funny, especially to the fans in Oakland that are just getting shafted out of a major league sports team who had a very rich history. You look at what's happened in Oakland the last 10 years. They lost the Warriors. They lost the Raiders. It was inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, this is a baseball team, like you said, that does have a rich history. Hall of Famers, world championships, big teams in the 70s. Reggie Jackson started his career there. And it's just all unfolding and right in front of some loyal fans' eyes, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean those are the people that are definitely losing out the most, are the fans. They didn't deserve this owner to really just trash this team like he has. The owner is just really incompetent to run this team at this point, and this was their plan, though. This is their plan all along, was to make this team as unwatchable as possible. They got rid of their broadcast booth a year ago after a controversial pregame show that was done. And, it was one of these things where just every single piece of their team was just getting plucked away in different ways. And now it's just a shell of what it used to be. And, I wanted to try to go make it out there this season to go see a game, final season for them, see the stadium I've never been before. But, as like the months are unfolding, I'm like, I feel weird going there. It's just like, it's gotta be a weird vibe there now, especially knowing that this team is just not competing at all this season. And, this is it. And the fans are disgusted. They are showing their hatred every game. The broadcasts are even showing, pregame notes saying that don't show rooted in Oakland or Oakland at all in the broadcast. They want to stay as far away from the city as possible this season, and it's sad. It's really sad.
You hope that the A's somehow, some way could start heading in the right direction, start developing a team that's ready to open the new stadium and give them a team that's ready to compete.